Friday. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. I do try to start a few minutes early every week, but the line is still so robust. But here we go. We have a lot to do, so let's get going. And we have a sick microphone. We'll have to, it's drooping, it's taped. So in 1876, 147 years ago today, Alexander Graham Bell conducted that famous experiment with Mr. Watson. Come here, I want to see you. We know he would love FaceTiming, and I sure would like to know what he would say about the cell phone. Let's get it started with Austin Spinney, VP of Commercial Lending at Cadence Bank, with our invocation, with past President Doug Briley, President and CEO of Warren Douglas Advertising, on the piano.
Dear Lord, this meeting is occurring because we want to do good for your kingdom. I pray that we do not grow tired while doing this good thing. For in due season we shall reap the benefits if we do not lose heart. I believe that you will guide us in this meeting among colleagues and friends. I believe that you will guide us so that the results can be seen in days, months, and years to come. We come here expecting to make a significant mark on this earth. We can only do it with your guidance. Amen. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. And now, Bill Fairley, Financial Advisor with Fairley Wealth Management, to welcome our guests and visiting Rotarians.
Thank you, President Sean. I was told that we have so many wonderful guests today that I'm going to do a general welcome, but I think it's more because they didn't want me to mangle any names. But we do thank and welcome all of our guests today on Zoom and in person. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Oh, you're so welcome.
You know, earlier this morning, there were quite a few Rotarians at the Fort Worth Police Academy graduation. And just to let you know, your club is out and active in the community, and that is very much part of what we do in memory to Chief Thomas R. Wyndham, who for many years was a member of this club. And at that time, Mayor Bob Bolin had asked him to work with our club to help him with the surge in crime they were having. And at that time, we put together, the club was very instrumental in putting together a program called Crime Stoppers that garnered national attention that has since become known as our Safe City Commission. So it's always an honor to be there. There was a group of 28 new graduates, and we will soon have Ryan Danielson come in. He was the top honor grad this morning. And now, what has become the world's most widely printed and quoted statement of business ethics, of course, our four-way test, and it is our tradition to recite it together. Number one, is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all concerned? 3, will it build goodwill and better friendship? 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? As we observe and celebrate our 110th year, it's interesting to note that 96 years ago yesterday, on March 9th in 1927, I think there's a photo, Tom, Rotary founder and President Emeritus Paul P. Harris The P stands for Percy. He was accompanied by his wife, Jean, and he addressed the Dallas Rotary Club. He was then escorted, or maybe we should say rescued, and brought back to Fort Worth, where he spent the afternoon and evening. Nothing else was recorded, so we will forever be in suspense about what happened with our club or in Fort Worth. Too bad we didn't yet have the newscasters to report what was going on. It would be another 18 years before the weekly newscast was initiated by club member Charlie Barnett in 1945. So 78 years in the making, we do have a newscast coming up right now with past President Ames Fender, partner at Fender Andrade. Is he not with us? Well, if he comes in later, we'll add him in. That gives us a few extra minutes on the agenda, and it was a packed meeting. I wanted to let you know, take a quick survey of the group. I received an invitation, you may remember, on January 20th, the new Fort Worth Opera Executive and Artistic Director, Angela Turner Wilson, joined us. And we know that the arts in our community are always needing our support. And she did express some of that, and she also expressed her vision during her tenure. And at the time, we were doing Rotary Night at the rodeo. So they have followed up to offer us Rotary Night at the Fort Worth Opera. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I want to find out, is what is the interest level, because they're asking for a seat guarantee. What they're proposing is Friday, April 14th, a special VIP Rotary reception to be followed by the program at 7 p.m. I think it's a 3-hour program, and it's Giuseppe Verdi's grandest opera, Aida. So for opera lovers, you all know that work. It was first performed in Fort Worth in 1958, and the last time it was performed here was in 1999, so it's been almost 25 years. Can I just have a very informal show of hands? Would you and or a spouse like to go to that? Thank you very much. That's very helpful, because I have a 2 p.m. planning session with them. And now, James Emmons, partner with Seton Hill. We are definitely moving into our crazy pants golf planning session. Here he comes. And we're going to do some things this year for the non-golfers. Here we go.
Oh, yeah, you'll have to tell them about that. Good afternoon to all. Glad to see you once again. I'm here to kind of give it a plug, as I try to do each time I'm here, but thanks to a great committee that we have, Courtney Lewis, David Campbell, Austin Spinney, Matt, Sylvia, don't see you, Jason Ellis is not here today maybe, but, we have a great group. We've been pretty successful thus far, but we have a few spots left open for sponsorship. And I believe it's up on the board there. You'll see some nice logos up there. And David could correct me on this, but this is going to be the first time ever we've had a hole-in-one type tournament. A&M Leasing is sponsoring that particular function. So you never know, lightning strikes, you could win a car. And not to mention how much fun it is. So for all you, we would love to have you come and participate and play in the tournament. And remember, this is a tournament for us to have fun. You play golf, you don't play golf. Come and fellowship, bring your clients, bring your friends. It'll be a great afternoon event. And then the entertainment that right after the tournament, we have the 2-time long driving champion, Jamie Sedlowski. For any of the other golfers who have heard of him, he's quite a sight to see, especially in person. A great exhibition, so it'll be a great day. Please sign up. The flyers are up front, and of course, you can see it here on the screen, and I'm sure that Aurora will be sending that out again. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Matt, Sylvia, partner with Seton Hill, if you could please join us. You know, we have initiated our first, is Matt not here? I don't know what's really going on. There's something else going on in town. Oh, there he comes. Yeah, please join us. Thank you. You know, this is our first year to have an Interact Club period. And it's at the Young Women's Leadership Academy, and perhaps the first of future as well. And Matt is a former president in New Hampshire, and he was also an Interact student when he was in high school. So he's been gracious enough to lead the charge. Matt, take it on.
So appreciate your time. Quick plug. So we got the Young Women's Leadership Academy Interact Club going from the ground up. It's been very positive. It's been a great experience for the new club, and they're very appreciative of the support that we've given them, from the expertise and time that folks have given here. And I know some of you are interested in helping support that club and participate. What we're going to be doing on March 24th, we're going to be having the 8 members, and I believe a couple of the folks from we're going to introduce them, and they're very excited to get their banner officially. And one thing we're going to be looking for is lunch sponsors. So probably going to be needing 10 spots for lunch to be sponsored. You can go up to myself or Madam President Sean here, and we can get you all taken care of here. It would be great to have that support. And the girls are really looking forward to talking about their club, introducing themselves, and I'm very happy to be presenting them with their banner to make it super official, as I call it right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, we really have to share our regard and appreciation again. They have 3 or 4 meetings a month, and Matt has a couple young children at home, so he's really got his hands full, and we appreciate it. Lauren Prier, Director, City of Fort Worth, regarding our mixer.
All right, y'all, we're meeting with the Real Estate Council of Greater Fort Worth. They're hosting us at their monthly networking event, so March 21st, 5 to 7 p.m. at the Maple Branch Craft Brewery. As we said last week, it's free to attend, food provided, cash bar. The catch this week is they are collecting bags of ground coffee for the sailors of the USS Fort Worth. So please bring those with you to our networking event, and we hope to see you then.
Hey, Tom, is there a photo in there from Casa a few nights ago? So take a look at this. You know, we were talking about the Casa Mañana special Rotary night with Carole King's Beautiful, and there's our gang right there. They had a great time. So that was the most recent social after-hours gathering. We hope you can join us on the 21st with the Greater Real Estate Council. And now, Chris Jordan, Chief Steward, Electroacoustics. He's going to give us an update on the Rotary Minority Business Awards. Chris.
Well, we are about to have our 3rd Rotary Minority Business Award in April. And this program has been very successful. We are down to, we've got great nominees, we've had great applicants, and this weekend is the judging for the event. So in April 21st will be the Rotary Minority Business Award. So on this slide, in that slide, are the people that have sponsored the Rotary Minority Business Award. And we still have room for a few sponsors so that you can join and get your company or organization up here on this slide as well. And what's really exciting about this is everybody that's up here is a Rotarian. And so to see how the Rotarians have come alongside the Rotary Minority Business Award communicates a great deal to the community about Rotary. So come join us as a sponsor. Thank you.
Past President Carlo Capua, Director of Innovation, City of Fort Worth. Also, he's closely attached to Sister Cities. He has a quick request.
Thank you. Guten Tag, everyone, and thank you, past President-elect Sean. It's always a pleasure to be here. The City of Fort Worth is hosting 2 students from our sister city of Trier, Germany. They'll be coming for 2 months, all of May and June. Now, we have host families for them for May. Their names are Vincent Schwal and Nils Hecker. Mr. Schwal is actually a member of his local town council, and Mr. Heckler is getting his master's in business administration. If you are willing to open up your home to, oh, we've got Wanda Bonder. Wanda Bonder is looking to set her daughter up with someone, so I don't know their marriage status, but we can find out. Thank you, Wanda. We've got two, so we can either split them up or they can stay in the same family. If you are interested, come and see me, and we'll let you fight with Wanda over which one she chooses. Thank you.
And now, this is what we love, new member introductions and new members. I've got, is Rupa here? So if I could please have Kaylee Scott and Kathy Sheffield and Becky Ramirez and Richard Knight approach the stage. Kaylee and Kathy, not here? So Becky Ramirez and Richard Knight, you're on. Oh, that's okay.
I know, it's me again. Sorry. But folks, today is my honor and privilege to introduce to you my friend Becky Ramirez. Quick personal story. Chris Jordan and I and a couple other folks first met Becky a couple years ago, of all places, at a cigar bar. She was there with a group of friends. Chris and I were there to visit with the owner of the establishment at the time, which is a mutual friend of Becky's, and Becky was the only girl in the building. But hey, we all got our vices, right? Right? So a little bit about Becky. Becky is the owner and CEO of IREF Balls Up, a local company that specializes in sports officiate training and youth mentoring. Becky was born in the small town of De Leon, Texas, named after the Leon River, not Ponce de Leon, the Spanish explorer, by the way. Her love of refereeing and mentoring started while attending De Leon High School. Like many kids in smaller communities, she faced some challenges early on, but her high school coach saw some potential in her and gave her a whistle and said, go ref those little kids over there and don't mess it up. So thus begins her junior officiating career. Excuse me. As she gained further experience through high school and her years at Tulsa State University, she began to attract some paid opportunities, and now she was hooked on the profession. Not only did she gain valuable experience with interpersonal skills and learning the aspects of various sporting activities, but a steady paycheck as well. So Becky tried her hand at a couple of other careers along the way, but her heart kept pulling her back to mentorship and sports. Thus, 13 years ago, IREF was born. She used her past experience as a template and wanted to give other youth the opportunity to learn the values of leadership, attentiveness, and humility through sports officiating. She started by herself and 3 other officials, and now she manages 280 officials through various YMCA school and recreation centers in the DFW area. Very good. Becky not only serves on various nonprofit boards, but 5 years ago started her own nonprofit, IREF2, to raise scholarships for high school students and other local youth who wish to attend classes to learn the aspects of sports officiating. Most recently, this lady right here has been recognized as one of the 2023 Faces of Fort Worth by Fort Worth Magazine. She is considered the face of sports coach referee training, Becky Ramirez.
Wow, how do I follow up on that? Thank you, Richard. So I am a horrible speech giver. I can officiate state level games and not at all be nervous and apply rules and do everything like that. But getting out in front and doing a speech, very difficult for me. I hope there's nothing in my teeth right now. I just want to say thank you to Richard Knight and my Maria Woolman. I don't know if she's here today, I hadn't seen her, for being great Rotarians and introducing me to this wonderful organization. Many thanks to the Rotary for having me as well. I'm not sure if I'm your first official, but thank you so much. A bit about my organization. I stumbled into officiating growing up in a small town. Of course, Richard gave you a little bit of an intro, where I supported myself and had a wonderful coach that introduced me to officiating, or refereeing, 29 years ago. Sports officiating has saved me and given me a purpose I hope to pass on to many other officials. I now have the ability to share it with others and pave a way for future officials, because we all know there is a shortage, right, Mike Brown? So, in fact, we would love to have you join us, or anyone that you know. I would love to show you what officiating has taught me, and you can earn your whistle, first whistle. Thank you all so much for this exciting, wonderful opportunity. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Yes, every sport.
Welcome.
So, yes.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So she does all sports. While we were talking, I was thinking back, early in the 1920s, we had the Rotary Fat and Lean team. I can't remember if it was a baseball. We might have to work on a different name, different teams, but that's something that's a new project. Now I have one new blue badge introduction, Dana Fitzpatrick. Is Dana here? There she goes. Dana was with us last week leading the invocation, and I think that tipped her over, and now she's got her badge. I'll trade you.
Thank you so much.
And now let's get to the main attraction. John Wright, President of Simple Leadership Strategies, is our chairman of the day to introduce our speaker. John.
Thank you, President Sean. It's truly an honor to introduce someone who literally needs no introduction. The word legend gets tossed around, but in this case, it's actually appropriate in his industry as well as in Fort Worth. For the few of you who do not know, he is the president and CEO of Cook Children's since 2007. He's led them through unprecedented growth. Too many things to actually mention here. If you have not had the opportunity to look at our newsletter, please look at that. He's accomplished so many things. I just want to mention just a couple things. Under his leadership, they have streamlined their mission and vision, which I hope he's going to talk a little bit about the promise. He was the recipient of the Fort Worth Business Press Executive of the Year in 2013. The Chamber of Commerce's Susan Halsey Executive Leadership Award in 2017. On a personal note, he has been happily and successfully married for 34 years, 2 grown, happy, successful daughters. One of his passions is health. He exercises a lot. He rides is it called a Peloton? And he's pretty creative. He's a songwriter. He's had 2 songs published as well. And he believes in living life with passion and purpose, and that's what he is. We're fortunate enough to have him speak on that today. Would you please welcome President and CEO Rick Merrill.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for that kind introduction. Usually, I'm assigned to committees and things that I'm absent at that particular meeting, and so I appreciate some of the things I was able to be part of, and certainly an honor to have been recognized in that way. So I would like to visit with you all this morning. Oh, by the way, March the 25th is our 105-year anniversary. You mentioned you guys are 105 as well. So I think we ought to all be singing happy birthday together at some point. We would welcome that. But I want to talk with you all about some of the challenges that we are facing in healthcare, and in particular, children's hospitals. I see that as a gathering storm. But I would also say to you that the challenges that we face in the healthcare world aren't necessarily unique to children's hospitals or to adult hospitals. In fact, we all are facing significant challenges in whatever industry that we find ourselves in our vocations. And so I think this is clearly applicable not just to those of us, THR family and friends, but all of you in the industry that you work for. But I want to also talk about how do we weather those storms through power of passion and purpose, but to do so in the context of two key takeaways. So vision for your business, a clear, concise vision, and engagement of those around you. I want to underpin those two takeaways with a couple of case studies, and then finally, I would like to end on a set of questions for you to consider. So in terms of these gathering storms, what you may not know, in the children's hospital world, most of our patient population is Medicaid. In fact, at Cook Children's, 57% of our patient population is Medicaid. Now, we are a not-for-profit, tax exempt. That's part of our mission. We love these kids, but the thing about Medicaid is that it woefully underfunds the cost of care. In Cook's particular instance, we lose about $145 million a year taking care of the Medicaid population. Now, that's a serious deficit bucket. Thank goodness we have some fair and reasonable contracts with our third-party commercial carriers that helps us backfill that deficit bucket. And of course, we have the endowment, thanks to Mrs. Cook, to help us close that gap and have some reserve left over so we can fund more care to more kids in our community. But what that also means is that we are constantly fighting in Austin to find ways to close the gap between that cost of care and what Medicaid reimburses. And so we come up with these crazy formulaic schemes, which we fight every year or every 2 years in Texas for supplemental payments. And those supplemental payments are designed to help close that gap between the cost of care and what we get reimbursed. Now, while we are successful time to time, they are always on the chopping block. It's always a fight, and it never really closes all of that gap between the cost of care and the reimbursement. So it's a constant battle for us, not just at the state level, but at the national level as well. What we've also seen over this past year with the workforce issues that we all are experiencing is on the adult side, about 28% of the pediatric units have closed. And what that has caused to happen is a consolidation of pediatric care into the children's hospitals. And so we've seen unprecedented high census, which has put, as you can imagine, significant strain and stress on Cook Children's and the other children's across the United States. Think about what's going on at the national level. Look at our debt, almost 32 trillion. Our deficit now is reaching 82 billion. And as you think about, at some point, we have to balance the budget. There are only 6 budget buckets, that you can tap into to balance that budget. You've got Social Security, which we're not going to touch. In fact, that's underfunded. You have defense. We're not cutting defense, especially given all the issues with Taiwan, China, and Russia, and Ukraine, et cetera. You don't cut Medicare because if you do, you're guaranteed to not be elected at the next round. Education will not be cut because it's too important. You have to pay the interest due on that debt. So guess what? The only item left is Medicaid. That's the least political bucket in which they can cut funding. And when we have over 50% of our funding coming from Medicaid for all children's hospitals, you can see that it's very much a concern and top of mind for us in the children's hospital world. Now, of course, we all are facing workforce challenges, the Great Resignation. We have some of our most skillful, seasoned veterans who are deciding to hang their stethoscopes up early, and that has created a challenge with a whole new group of people coming in and getting them up to speed with their skill set and the quality that we expect. And of course, fitting into the culture of our organization is very, very important. We all are experiencing supply chain issues. I know Zorn, as a new member, is here, and the auto group that he works with, they are struggling. All of us are struggling with supply chain issues to deliver the products that we want to for the customers that we serve. In the healthcare world, of course, one of the biggest concerns we have is the supply of drugs. And we do run out of drugs from time to time, and it's very challenging for us because many of these drugs are life-saving drugs for the patients that we take care of. And then last but not least, and I could probably go on all day long about challenges for all of us, but one thing stands out, and that's the mental health of the population that we serve at Cook Children's. It's a tsunami, and I would actually suggest to you that it's the next pandemic that we will see coming our way. You may not know this, but suicide now is the second leading cause of death for children the ages of 10 through 14. And I will tell you something that's actually going to surprise you, if not shock you. We have had a 4.5-year-old child at Cook Children's who tried to commit suicide. How is that possible? And it is very much a concern, and we are wrestling at Cook Children's with how we continue to deliver to a population that is very much in need of the mental health and behavioral health services. So, I believe it is possible to not only survive, but to survive in the storm that we find ourselves in, and to do so through leveraging power and purpose in our organizations through a clear vision, a clear, concise vision, and through the engagement of others that we serve. So let's talk about just how powerful vision can be. And without it, the people perish, okay? So if you think about a great case study, Moses, he took the Israelites out of Egypt, spent 7 years in the desert before they crossed the Jordan River into the Promised Land. Now, leading a group of people through desert, eating manna every day, I cannot not begin to imagine the challenges that Moses faced. But he was a smart guy. He painted a very powerful word picture that everyone got hold of. He said, we're crossing over to the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey. Now, when you're eating manna every day, milk and honey probably sounds pretty darn good. I will tell you, I think they spent 7 years in the desert because a generation had to die off who were not ready to move over into the new land. The old saying, in order to get the people out of Egypt, God had to get the Egypt out of the people. And it took 7 years to do that. So I would ask you, could you articulate the vision of your company with a very powerful word picture that drives your organization to stay together for ultimately whatever your goal, your promised land is for your company? Let me illustrate this just a little bit further. Back in the 1960s, there was a company called JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, in Pasadena, California. That organization was populated with some of the most brilliant minds in the United States, graduates from MIT, Caltech. But what was known about that company is that it was full of bureaucracy and red tape, very political, tremendous infighting, and a very toxic environment in which they were not able to get anything done. But then something changed when they got a contract with NASA to put the jet propulsion systems together to put man on the moon through the Apollo missions. And all of a sudden, that toxic environment, the red tape just melted away, and it was replaced with a very collegial, collaborative environment. Because at the end of the day, after working very hard with each other, putting together the jet propulsion systems, they were leaving at the late hours, and they would go into their parking lot all together, and they would look up into the sky, and they could see visually a very clear vision of what they were trying to accomplish. Again, the power of word picture and vision is very, very important. Let me bring this just closer to home. So when I got to Cook 16 years ago, Cook, like most organizations, had a mission statement, a vision statement. We have overachievers at Cook, by the way, so we couldn't stop there. We had meta strategies and overarching principles. And so I found myself speaking to audiences, both internal and external, about our mission, our vision, our meta strategies, our overarching principles, and describing what a meta strategy is and how it interplayed with the mission and vision. And so you can imagine eyes would start to glaze over in the audience, and then my eyes started glazing over. And it became clear to me as an early aha moment that we were losing our deep sense of purpose in the complexity of what we were trying to communicate. And through a series of listening sessions with board members, medical staff, leadership, and frontline staff, because they're very important, and we listened to their voice, we took all of those elements and then we boiled them down into what we simply call our promise. And as you can see there, it's straightforward, it's simple, it's easy to catch. We needed something clear, concise, compelling, something that was caught and not taught, something that everyone could communicate. And I will tell you that we put this promise in front of us every time we make a very important decision about strategy, about policy, about anything that we need to decide that's going to move the organization forward. So let me give you just an example of the way we use this front and center as we make decisions. If we really are here to make a difference in the life of every child in our community, how are we going to do that? We can't wait till they just show up on our doorstep or in our ER. So we've gone through a series of surveys over the last 15 years. We know the top 6 health issues facing the children in our 6 main county service area on the western part of the Metroplex. The number 1 health issue facing children in our county, the children 0 to 18, is asthma. Now, there's no asthma for cure, but you can control it. Well, having the advantage of an integrated system, you may not know this, but we actually have an HMO, a Medicaid health plan, with 185 enrollees or children who've signed up with our health plan. So we have the holy grail of healthcare claims data. We have great insight into the overall care of these kids. So we mined the data, and we found all the children who had accessed an ER in a 12-month period with asthma, showing up for their asthma, telling us clearly they're not controlling their asthma. So we looked at those families, about 450 of these families. We went to our endowment foundation and we said, we want to go into a pilot of 80 of these families. We want to enter their homes, talk to them about asthma, give them some material, and let's look for triggers in their home. It could be pet dander, their mattresses need to be replaced in case, their ductwork needs to be cleaned, maybe their carpet needs to be replaced, but on the cook dime, remediate that home for the family. And they said, absolutely, this is front and center in our promise. So we went into those 80 families' homes. A year later, we saw a 78% reduction in ER visits from these families. We went back to the board and said, we have all these other families now, we need you to fund that project, and they readily funded those other families. And so we are in the process of going into all of those families to make a difference. So when you start to create that clear, concise, compelling, caught and not taught vision and purpose in your organization, it can become part of the DNA. And what I wanted to do is show you an example of what it looks like, what it feels like when that becomes part of your DNA, the very fabric of your organization. This is one of our nurses and a story that I think is very powerful and illustrates the point that I'm trying to make.
I believe that a promise is a really big deal. It means that you can be trusted. Childhood is magic. So making moments magic for them means that they get to have a little bit of their normal in the hospital. And it takes an environment that's super scary and cumbersome and loud and all of those things, and it turns it into something special. When you make those moments magical for the kiddos, it inevitably overflows onto you. When you fill them up, it can't help. There's no way it's not going to come back to you. When you work together as a team, it's almost impossible for the children to not notice. They notice that everyone's in it for them, and that we're all part of it. It's not just one person. So it's the team that makes the difference. The patient with the soppy socks, she had been in the hospital for a really long time. She had pretty much been broken head to toe. Internal injuries were very significant. And her struggle was a very long uphill journey to get us to the day where the sloppy socks happened. So much had happened prior to that, and we were trying very hard to give her the same care providers, to keep everybody really consistent and build trust with the parents, because that was another problem, is that you just had to try to let them know that they could trust you with their very precious dollar that they almost lost. That day, she had been tasked with getting up as part of her PT and taking a shower and walking to the shower with 2 broken legs, broken femurs, so really hard to do. So we worked all day on it. It just wasn't working out. Pain control, other therapies, braces that needed to be refit, just struggle after struggle. We just met every possible obstacle that we could have. So around shift change, I was her day shift nurse, and she finally said, "Okay, I'm ready." And I said, "Okay." It happened to be Christmas Eve. We were trying to get her home for the holidays, and so that's why it was even more important, and we had pressed on trying to get her through this milestone so she could prove that she was ready to go home. So at shift change, she said, "I'm ready," and I just said, "Okay, and let's go." And so I got her up, and I had her in my arms, and I was standing next to the bed, and Kamisha, the night shift nurse, walked in, and I said, "You know what, Kamisha, I got this for just a minute." I had fully anticipated just walking her into the bathroom and giving her over to Mom and letting her mom bathe her. I thought that's what she would want. And so we walked step by step, me holding her like this, and her with her hands on my shoulders, very slowly, to the bathroom. And we got there, and I went to hand her to Mom, and she grabbed me and said, "No, you." And I just looked at Mom, and part of me was, I didn't want to take that moment away from Mom, but I also didn't want to not give it to her. And her mom teared up because she hadn't really had that with anybody else. And so I just looked at her and I said, "Okay." And I kicked off my shoes and I stepped in the shower with her, and it was running over my head, and I could feel my pants wet and my socks wet. And she laid her head on my shoulder while her mom bathed her, and she just kept saying, "I trust you, I trust you, I trust you." And I just knew that that's where I needed to be. And I knew that I was a nurse for that moment. And I knew that I was put in that patient's life to get her through the shower and to get her home and to get her back to her life. She came and visited me every year at Christmas. She would bring me cookies or muffins or something she made. And as I moved on in the hospital, she would find me, but I never felt such a connection with a patient, and a great privilege to be able to take care of her.
So, she was really anxious to get home that evening to be with her own family on Christmas Eve, and was actually taking some time off, but yet there she was. Again, the power, right? So let me pivot to the power of seeing the world through others' eyes, and just how important it is to engage those that you work with and those that you do business with. You know, Stephen Covey said it well, seek to understand before you seek to be understood. When I arrived at Cook Children's 16 years ago, I felt compelled to not spend any time in my office, but to spend all of my time out in the organization. So every day, at different shifts, weekends, even on holidays, I was everywhere in the organization, the ER, the outer clinics, rehab, wherever it might be. And everyone I ran into, I asked two questions. The first one is if I could, what's going really well, because I wanted to make sure we kept doing it. And then I asked him, if I could fix one thing for you, what would it be? And I took all of my notes after 6 months, and there was an absolute resounding theme that was at the top of that list, and that was to build more space. We were turning patients away. How could we fulfill our mission, our promise, if we weren't able to take care of the population? And so here I am, 8 months into my job, standing in front of the board, asking for $275 million for a new tower. Now, I told them I'm a scuba diver, and they started, you could see some scratched heads, said the number one rule of scuba diving, if you're gonna do anything deep, dangerous, or dumb, do it in the first 1/3 of your air. Now, I told them this isn't dumb. They knew I had done my homework, and they knew that it was needed, and so they gave me the green light. But all of a sudden, you had an organization that said, guess what? We have a CEO who's listening to us, and he's acting on what we're telling him. Very, very powerful. That engagement is just so important. Equally powerful is engaging with your customers. And I would say to you, for those who have desk jobs, if you sit at your desk all day long, you're probably not going to be engaging a lot of people in a way that's important. So I do try and make rounds, as do our entire executive team. Very important that we get out and stay connected. So about 9 years ago, I was walking down our hematology, oncology, our cancer unit, and this young 10-year-old boy named Matthias came walking up to me, stuck his hand out and said, "Matthias Utley." And I said, "Matthias, I'm Rick Merrill. It's good to meet you." And come to find out, he was walking down the hallway with one of our activities coordinator, Trina, and she said, "Who's that man in the suit coming down the hallway?" And she said, "Well, that's our CEO, Rick Merrill." He looked at her and he said, "I'm going to make him my friend." And so that week, we had what's called Camp Sanguinity down south for cancer kids, but Matthias was not well enough to go, nor were any of the kids on the cancer floor, so they were bummed. But Matthias organized camp chemo on the floor, and he invited me to be his camp buddy that day. So I spent the day, shut my office down, closed my book, and said, I'm going to go be with Matthias. So I was his camp buddy that day, and so I got to know him over a 2-year period. He was a jokester. He loved to play tricks on nurses and docs. He would actually put M&Ms in his nose, and when the nurses would come in, he'd blow out the chocolate on his deal. He had a central line in, which is something you put in surgically, and so he had the nurses bring him an extra central line. He kind of stuffed it under his gown, and when the doctor came in, he acts like he pulls it out. "Hey, what's this?" And the doctors would go, One day he was febrile and needed to stay in his room. He was having none of it. So he had the nurses bring him some chocolate pudding. He put it in a bedpan and a spoon, and he sat at the door and he said, "Don't make me call Rick to get out of here." I was never Mr. Merrill to Matthias. I was always Rick. Now, Matthias had a bucket list. Now, what 12-year-old should have a bucket list? He wanted to go under the water in a submarine and see the beautiful underwater seascape. He wanted to jump out of a perfectly good airplane and parachute. And then he wanted to go to the Great Wall of China. I found out he liked magic tricks, and we were in New York with some of our doctors on a conference. And one of the doctors happened to be an oncologist that was taking care of him. That's where I learned he liked magic tricks. So we were finished with the conference one afternoon, and I dragged this doc with me to a magic shop in New York. So I bought these incredible magic tricks, brought them home, and Matthias, who's from Abilene, was in for some treatment, and so he called me up. So I went over there and I showed him these tricks. Of course, his eyes were this big. And he went back to Abilene and had a magic show for his school, which was pretty cool. But after about 2 years of going, by the way, he went through 2 bone marrow transplants, which is a horrible situation to go through. The second one, he was told that it likely is not going to work, but he asked a very important question. He said, "Will it help other kids who have my rare cancer?" And they said, "Yeah, it probably will." I'm doing it. So he dressed up in an orange prison jumpsuit. He made a paper mache ball and chain. He made a fake cigarette, and he drugged this ball and chain into the bone marrow transplant unit. And he said, if I'm going in style. That was Matthias. So I finished up a town hall meeting on a Friday afternoon and was putting my papers together, and one of the nurses from the oncology unit came and said, hey, Matthias is here and he wants to see you. So I went up to the unit and I got to say hi to his dad, and he was just this skinny, frail kid who was but he was smiling as only Matthias could smile. And on Sunday morning, I got a phone call from one of the oncologists that he had passed peacefully in his home in Abilene. This was Labor Day weekend, and so on Tuesday, his father called me and said, we're going to have a celebration ceremony for Matthias in Abilene. Would you come and speak? And I said, absolutely. I hung up and I thought, wow, how am I going to get through this? So I called our pastoral care director, Ann Miller, and she gave me probably the most sound advice I've ever had in my entire career. She said, Rick, I want you, do not forget one thing. You are not there as Rick Merrill. You are there as the president and CEO of Cook Children's, and don't you forget it. That's what I needed to hear. So I got the nurses together on Wednesday because they had seen him in ways that I didn't get to see and experience in him. That's where I learned so much of these things about him. But toward the end of this conversation, they told me about this beautiful painting that Matthias had painted that's hanging up in our infusion treatment center where we give the chemotherapy. I said, well, I haven't even heard about this picture. So they started telling me, and they said, he's named all of the animals in this picture. Matthias is the dolphin smiling, breaching the water as only Matthias can. His name for God was Pawpaw, and the son is God. The school of fish are the nurses, the doctors are the whales. His mom is the seahorse, because she's always over him, kind of like this. He put a crab there just because some people are crabby. And Trina, the clownfish, of course, is activities coordinator. But the nurses looked at me and they said, Rick, at the very center of this painting is a clam with a pearl in it. And he told us that Cook is the pearl and Rick Merrill is the clam because he is the protector of Cook. If that doesn't get any better in your career, I don't know what can get any better than that. I actually had them duplicate this painting, and it's on the side of my door when I walk out every day as a reminder that I am the protector of Cook Children's, and I never, ever forget that. And I would just say to you, when you sit behind your desk and you don't get engaged with those people around you, you're going to lose out on some tremendous gifts, some things that will be blessings in ways that you can't even begin to describe. And I would encourage you all to do that. So what I'd like to do then is end with just a few questions for you to ponder, maybe think about over the weekend. Is your company's vision clear, concise, compelling? Can it be caught and not taught? Does your company's purpose drive every key decision that you make? Are you surrounded by people wearing soppy socks? Are you purposeful in the way you engage your customers and your stakeholders that you work with? And do you see the world through other people's eyes? Look, I know we all have very hard, challenging jobs, and many of us are just totally exhausted. I can tell you in healthcare, very much so. People are tired, they're exhausted. And my hope and my prayer for all 9,000 employees at Cook Children's is that at the end of their shift, at the end of the day, when they put their head on the pillow, I know they're tired, I know they're exhausted, but I want them to say, this isn't exhaustion with death by 1,000 cuts. I'm tired, but you know what? I did something really special today. And that's what I pray for and hope for all of our employees. So thank you all for being attentive, and thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I want to just take an opportunity to make a shout out to a very, very dear friend, Pitt Dodson over here. We love you to death. You are such a wonderful individual, and you have been such a great partner to Cook Children. So thank you. Thank you. Happy to answer one or two questions if you have them.
So my family is impacted by Cooks, but I think very few people know that Cooks owns the Child Study Center in J.E. Justin. The work you guys do there is so.
Well, Matt, our leader, is sitting at the table here at the Child Study Center.
Matt is awesome. Our son goes there
Thank you.
and it has transformed his life.
Thank
So,
you.
I mean, you should tell like what you guys do there because it truly is amazing.
Well, we were fortunate enough to merge with the Child Study Center, what, 4 years ago now, something like that? Five, time flies. Yeah, and your Matt is a rock star. You've done such a wonderful job, and it is a great, it's over on Lancaster, and we are so glad that we are able to partner with them and bring resources to them that they were struggling sometimes to get a hold of. So together, the marriage has been very good. Our missions are so aligned, and it made no sense at all for us to be working separately. And now we're coordinating our care, and I think we're delivering better care, for more comprehensive care for the children that we serve. Okay, again, thank you all.
Can you stick around to answer I know that we were all looking very forward to hearing your remarks. Welcome back to Rotary. As a parent, none of us are ever more vulnerable than when we have an ill or injured child. So in that regard, that's where you and Cook Children step in. And even before you told me Matthias's story, I was already thinking you are very much our guardian as a parent and our guardian as a community. Thank you for the work you do. It is our tradition at the Rotary Club of Fort Worth to make a donation in the name of each speaker. And currently we are funding the Rotary International Polio Fund, which is something I think you can also appreciate. So there's a memento of that donation in this bag. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And I made note that he's a songwriter. I don't know if he's a good singer, but I'm going to talk with Natalie and get some auditions for our Christmas time holiday festive follies. So we'll hopefully hear more about that. And now, closing announcements. March 25th, we know, is the 105th anniversary of Cook Children, so we'll all celebrate with you. Casa Mañana, let's take another look at those happy faces. I want to encourage you to sign up for our next mixer, our after-hours social on Tuesday, March 21st, 5 to 7 p.m., Maple Branch Brewery. Bring your friends and associates. Get with Matt Sylvia to sponsor Interact lunch guests. Carlo to share your home. We've got the two young men, I think they were both 23. April 15th, District Assembly in Denton. It's a Saturday. It's from around 9 to 2. That's one of the primary training sessions. I've already notified the board members and committee members, but everyone's welcome. If you're an active Rotarian or want to be more active, this is a great session to attend. Finally, sponsorships, Rotary Minority Business Awards and Crazy Pants. And next week's program, we're calling it Tales from the 19th Hole. The Avanzada, there's a new golf community going up in Parker County, and I'm told that Ben Hogan really wanted to get his hands on that property for a course, but he never managed. These guys have got it. So we're going to find out not only what it takes to develop a golf course, but also one of the speakers is a long tenured golf pro, JJ Henry. So he's got lots of tales to share. So if you're a golf lover, or even if you're not, be sure and come. And finally, as a humanitarian organization, we know that Rotary strives to create environments of peace. So today, as we always do, let us reflect now on the words of Eddie Hillstrom. She is a Dutch author who died in Auschwitz. She said, ultimately, we have just one moral duty: to reclaim large areas of peace in ourselves, more and more peace, and to reflect it toward others. And the more peace there is in us, the more peace there will also be in our troubled world. Have a great weekend, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.